My grandmother passed away when I was about 13, and looking back on it, that was probably one of my first experiences with spiritual awakening. My grandmother had been sick, yes, about a year. And during the time she was sick, my different grandchildren, different aunts, uncles would go to the hospital. We would take turns sitting with her so she wasn't alone. And this particular day, it was my turn to sit with her. So I'm sitting with her at the hospital, and she said, "Little Audra, can you see those flowers?" And I'm like, no. And she said, "Oh, I wish you could see them. They're so beautiful." She had started to see the other side. She was starting to make her transition. Now, keep in mind, my grandmother had never experienced dementia. She had never experienced any senility, anything like that. She had always, while she was physically sick, she was always in her right mind. And I knew what she was seeing was very real. So that was my first experience of like, well, this is different. There's more to this. I didn't know, of course, at 13 how to articulate it, but I knew what she was seeing was real. And I knew there must be something more to this thing we call life. So I'm in junior high school at the time, and I hear the intercom. The intercom comes on, tells the teacher to send Audra to the office. Now, I'm named after my grandmother, so my family calls me Lil Audra because my grandmother's Audra. I also have an Aunt Audra, go figure. But I'm Lil Audra to my family. So I get a call from the intercom to go to the front office. I instantly knew it was because my grandmother had passed away. Don't tell me how I knew, I just knew. I get to the office, I'm signed out. My aunt and mom are and tell me, because my aunt and mom are together, they tell me that my grandmother passed away. So they confirmed what I already knew in the moment. And I can recall us leaving the school. I felt like this peace, and which I even feel now, like kind of goosebumps, because I'm thinking she made it. She made it to that other side. Now, I loved my grandmother dearly. I am her namesake, and I'm feeling like this sense of peace, even about losing my saving grace, which is odd to repeat, because I don't know that I felt love so deeply than I had felt the love from my grandparents. That was such a beautiful, they were such beautiful and loving people to me. The next day, we go to the funeral home to view her body. We, as in the grandchildren, go to the funeral home to view her body. So this is key, another key point, because when I get to the funeral home, when I saw her, everyone else who viewed her were pretty hysterical, which is probably the reaction that they should be having. But I couldn't understand it, because when I saw her, I thought, that's not her. What I felt instantly was that her body, without her spirit, was not her. That's the only way I can put it. She was so full of light and love and all the things that, seeing her body without her spirit, I couldn't make it was no longer her. So that again was another reminder that there's more to life, that we are in fact spiritual. I of course couldn't articulate that then, but that was one of those moments. We're still at 13. Now, what I didn't say, the reason this part is so key, such a key part of the story, losing my grandmother, my reaction to that was, I was 13, but a year before I experienced one of the most traumatic experiences of my life. So much so I was left not talking. That was how traumatic the experience was. And I can recall my grandmother being the only adult in my life at the time who tried to get through to me, because while I wasn't talking, I could still hear. I could hear, I could understand, I just wasn't speaking. I was left that traumatized. And she said, "Little Audra, I know something happened to you, and you can tell me what happened." But I was so afraid, and I was just too afraid to tell her. But I can remember her trying to get through to me and how much that meant to me at the time. So losing her, it's not like I didn't feel anything for her. Losing her was big to me because, again, she was my saving grace. She was everything to me. My grandmother passed away. I'm starting to grow into who I am. And I'm going to get to the point where I'm about in my late teens, early 20s. I started to get exposed to spirituality. I started to really awaken or become aware that I was awakening. And that was such a struggle for me. Now, I grew up my foundation was in Christianity. So these people who were near and dear to my heart, my grandmother, Audra Mae, which is my maternal grandmother, my grandfather, Perry, and my paternal grandmother, we call her my dear. These people, I say they were Christians, but they embodied the teachings of Jesus. So they didn't just talk about Christianity. They didn't just talk about going to church. They truly tried to live like Jesus did. And I mean, no gossiping, no cursing, no drinking, no smoking, and just filled with love and light. I wanted to emulate them. And when I realized, like in my early 20s, that my walk was starting to look different, I really struggled with that. And not just because of my grandparents, but because any of us who has been a part of religion, we know that most of that is what we're taught is placed into us from birth, from the time we can remember. So all I ever knew was church. So what I was learning as in my early 20s, I'm starting to learn about things like metaphysics and reading self-help books and learning about religion even in a way that I had not been exposed to up until that point. And it almost felt blasphemous to me. It just felt like, what is this? What am I doing? And I want to be like these people. So I was really struggling internally. So during this time, I had an apartment and I had a plant that needed to be repotted. And I can remember getting a pot for the plant and repotting it. And when I repotted the plant, it just started to flourish. It just started to just take off in a way that it wasn't taking off in that small pot. And the lesson for me, what I got spiritually, was just like that plant that needed to be repotted. Some of the soil went to the new pot from the old pot. It still had the roots from that old pot. Same plant. It just needed to go in a larger pot. New soil needed to be added for it to truly grow. And my lesson, for me, the plant was the lesson. Christianity was the foundation. What my parents had put into me, that was the foundation. But in order for me to evolve, I had to take on this new understanding. I had to learn what was coming to me. And it didn't mean that I had to give everything else completely up. That was the foundation. So that was one of those awakenings for me. I'm just adding to it. I don't have to throw everything away. So fast forward now, during this time, I wasn't talking to anybody about what I was experiencing because I didn't know of anyone I could talk to. Now, my mother's actually a minister, finished seminary. She was a pianist, so played the piano at church most Sundays. That's the kind of environment I grew up in. And I did not talk to her about it. I didn't feel like I could, but this one day, she gave me an Essence magazine. I'll never forget it. And mind you, I forget a lot. It doesn't seem like it here, but I experienced a lot of trauma from my childhood, so there's a lot that I don't remember. But my mother gave me an Essence magazine, and she had kind of folded the page down to what she wanted me to read, this article that she wanted me to read. And it was an article about spirituality. She didn't say anything to me about it. She just kind of gave me the magazine and like, here. For me, it felt like a blessing of sorts. So, and maybe I'll talk to her about that, but it's almost like she knew that my walk was going to be different, and giving me this article while she didn't discuss it with me. It felt like, here, this is for you. You're going to need this, and it's okay. That's what it felt like to me. So we get past the Essence article. I'm just growing through life, having my own lessons and what have you. This is my 20s. There was a moment in my 20s where I'm laying on my mother's living room floor, and the only way I can describe it is like a presence that says, "Are you ready?" It wasn't audible. It was no voice, but it was a presence, a feeling. That's the only way I can describe it. "Are you ready?" And I said yes. And I went on what I would call a journey through the universe. It was very quick. It's like I left my body and I was back. And it was peaceful. It was beautiful. And again, it was a reminder to me that there's something more to this. But I had to share that. I get to 29 and I decided that I am going to call people whom I felt, the people in my life that I felt had caused me some harm or suffering in my childhood especially. And when I called them, that did not, their response was not what I was expecting. It wasn't receptive. No one seemed to have any regret about the way they had treated me or mistreated me. I felt very much abandoned and like this broken little girl, this broken little Audra. And it sent me into a deep depression. That time frame sent me into a really deep depression. And I spent most of my 30s feeling depressed. If you've ever experienced the depression, you know what I mean. When it would hit me, it would hit me like a ton of bricks. So I'm battling with depression. I'm seeing a therapist at the time. By now I'm a part of, it was called the Institute for Divine Wisdom, just a community of people who were also on their spiritual awakening journey. I would say aware of their spiritual awakening and just looking to grow and evolve. And I'm experiencing depression. One of the sisters that was there became my therapist. She visited Ghana. And while she was in Ghana, this is what she told me. She was talking to a chief there who was giving her a reading. And he mentioned to her that she had a client who had 3 children who was experiencing a deep depression. She said she instantly knew that he was talking about me. He said, "You have a client, she has 3 children, she's experiencing depression. When you go back to the States, I want you to tell her that she's experiencing depression like this because she has work to do in this with others. And she's going through this so that she'll be able to empathize with others when she works with them." Sometimes we don't understand our suffering, but it all has a purpose. It may be preparing us, and probably is always what I've come to know now that I've actually grown spiritually and evolved and am still evolving, that it comes to bless us. It doesn't always look like it. It doesn't always feel like it, but there's a purpose in the pain. Be on the lookout for part 2. And feel free to ask me any questions. If you're on a awakening journey, if you have questions, if you're struggling, I'm here to help. Thank you so much for sitting with me and allowing me to share.